next for Xplane 11, and we're going to start with Ben Sutnick, who is now pretty much the nerd center of landmark research as much as me, if not more. So here we go.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you guys hear me in the back? All right, good enough. Hi, my name is Ben Sutnick. I'm here with a pretty big chunk of the landmark research development team, and we are here today to tell you about Xplane, what we've been doing, and we're going to show you some of what we've been working on and where we're going with Xplane in the next year. So, 1 year ago, yeah, we will break down, thank you. That is more light.
Man, I've got a full crowd here. On switch.
Perry to the rescue.
All right. All right. That's Austin. That's me. I'm younger. So 1 year ago, at this flight simulation conference, we put up this picture and we said, we're going to show you what we've been cooking up in the lab. And we gave everybody a sneak preview of some of our next generation technology, our lighting, our sound, the new user interface. And 1 year later, it's out, it's here, and it is Xplane 11. And we have enough new stuff that we want to talk about that we can't go into everything that went into Xplane 11. Xplane 11 has been a huge and tremendous release for us. But there are just a couple things I want to highlight that I would say form the foundation of Xplane 11. The first one is our fleet. We upgraded our entire fleet to make them consistently high quality, with beautiful detail. The new airplanes, they look fantastic. And they're also completely functional. Everything works in the 3D cockpits. The systems are modeled in great detail. The engines are modeled in great detail. So Xplane 11 is founded on really good airplanes. The next big thing we did is we completely redid Xplane's user interface. And when we were looking at how are we going to redo Xplane's interface, Austin had one directive for us, sort of a prime directive. He said, you can't take away the power of Xplane. You can't take my Xplane and stop people from doing all of the amazing things they do with it. It had to still be fully functional and a fully powerful flight simulator. So this is what we came up with. A user interface that is easy for new people to use, but still exposes everything Xplane is capable of. And what we try to do is make everything very visual so that you can interact with the simulator quickly and understand what's going on. And for experienced users, I've been using Xplane for almost 20 years, and I found that this is faster to use. It's really got great usability. So we went from this to that. The third thing we did is we completely redid the lighting and rendering engine. So the lighting engine in Xplane 11 is now based on the laws of physics and optics. And what this means is stuff pretty much just works. Our art team can make the airplanes the way they are in real life with a wide range of materials, and Xplane will make them look right no matter what the weather is doing. We also redid the atmosphere so that everything that affects how your aircraft will look is modeled. And that way, you get great visuals across a really wide range of flight. And one more thing I want to draw attention to is our Xplane Scenery Gateway. This is a server where our community can build 3D airports out of Lego bricks we give them and upload them and share them with the entire community. And this has just exceeded our expectations. We now have 4,447 3D airports. These are built into the simulator. We have over 3,000 users creating these airports, and we broke the 10,000 mark for the number of submissions shared on the gateway. So the community has just done incredible stuff with this. At this point, 42 of the 50 busiest airports in the world are already in Xplane in 3D. That's something you get as soon as you get Xplane 11. And by the way, the other 8, I'm told they're all in progress right now. So these airports, they look great. They're a huge addition to flying inside Xplane. The detail is just incredible. Tyler made me this graph. This is the progress of the gateway over the last 2.5 years, and the community just keeps on giving us more airports. So that's just been phenomenal. So a lot of what we've done with Xplane 11 has made Xplane look better. But at no point have we said, we're going to compromise on the fidelity of the simulator. We're still pushing for the most realistic, the most accurate, the deepest simulation we can have. So I'm going to turn it over to Austin, who's going to talk a bit about the physics and about the flight model stuff he's done in Xplane.
Okay, if I were to truly talk about the physics in Xplane, we would be here for an hour, and I know y'all don't have that kind of time and eventually get boring. So I just cut to the absolute bare chase here for the absolute minimum. All right, so what did I do? Did I shut it down? How about I turn this to you and I say, next slide, please? Okay. So, and this is why we have a lot of people in the company. Everybody does their own little thing. I don't know how to work projectors. So, next slide, please. But then they do have to do what I say. Okay, there we go. Okay, so obviously starting Xplane, I was just running Cessna 172s and Piper Archers back in college. Since then, I've owned Columbia 400s, Cirrus SR-22s, now a Turbine Lancer Evolution. And so as I get new airplanes, I'm constantly flight testing and learning, just milking my airplanes for all the information I can get out of them to then take that data and move it into Xplane so that what I deliver is the same thing as what I fly. You know, what I fly is what I deliver to you. And I recently got my hands on a declassified pilot's operating handbook from the F4 to do engine physics up to Mach 2.5. And drag, supersonic drag, and compression physics as well. Interesting thing about supersonic flight, it's less about the engine and more about the inlet than you would ever imagine. It's like, for an F4 Phantom, the purpose of the engine is like to pressurize the inlet, because that's what actually drives the airplane. So based on my experience in A4 X-ray, really got the PT6 engine model. A PT6 engine is a strange thing. It's almost an organic feeling machine to operate because everything's spinning at different speeds and temperatures and pressures. You never advance the throttle all the way. Never, ever, ever. It's always a question of how much temperature and fuel and pressure, RPM do you want to have in that engine. You advance the throttle accordingly. And when you get it coded right, it almost feels like a living thing inside the airplane, which certainly does when you fly it. Went back through all my notes from my old reciprocating engine airplanes, made sure that model was good. I got a guy named Brett Sumper, a long-time Xplane user and military helicopter pilot, got me operating handbook data for the OH-58, which is the military version of L-206, which really allowed me to get the settling with power, vortex spring state, effective translational lift, all the stuff that makes helicopters really quirky, interesting birds, to get the rotor just right. I'm now doing a simulator of an A320 for some A320 and Boeing 737 pilots who want to start business doing certified A320 training in Europe. And so they've gotten me A320 pilot summary handbooks to get my N1 and N2 and thrust curves all matched. Based on flying my airplane, which is pressurized, I've really gotten the pressurization modeling pretty darn serious. It's not just are you pressurized or not, but instead it's actually inflow, outflow, pressure coming in, from the pressurization system. And then the slide that Ben decided to hand me here was just one that shows, for example, the thrust is a function of Mach number on what's clearly a supersonic engine. So like when you start off at the ground, you have a certain amount of thrust, and then as you speed up, you get more and more ram air buildup, right? This is the ram air effect, which becomes significant until at some point you start to transition from total ram air recovery to what's called a normal shock, where tremendous amounts of energy are lost, which happens here, but you transition from a ram air where you're recovering your airflow energy to a normal shock where it's lost, and then above the normal shock, more and more energy is lost the faster you go. So what you see is that the thrust, and in this case probably an F4 Phantom or something like it, as a function of both Mach number laterally and altitude vertically, where higher altitudes are actually shown at the bottom because you have lower thrust because the air is thinner. Okay, next slide. Let's back up. This is one of my favorite ones. Okay, so this is my airplane Lancer Evolution, and what we've got is just a new kind of little tweak in the blade element theory. We now have all the little forces that are built up on the wings. They actually deform with the aircraft structure now. So as the wing flexes under G-load and turbulence and stuff like that, the little thrust vector, lines, the points where the force, is emanating from, move with the flexing wing. So being that's in the aircraft structure, flexing and turbulence and whatnot, the lift and the drag in the moment is all being applied to the right place on the airplane. Now, I'm extremely disappointed that the color got absolutely screwed up by this projector. But if the projector hadn't completely just butchered our colors, you would see from the propeller, you'd have green lines for lift, red lines for drag, and then yellow lines for the vector sum of the two. And they are red, green, and blue in Xplane. Or red, green, and yellow in Xplane. They just all, there's something wrong with the projector makes them all like yellow. But what you can see is the lift is kind of coming out of the propeller at a different angle, you know, each point along the prop. And why would that happen? And the answer is because out near the tip of the propeller, it's all a rotational thing that's going on, right? But near the root of the propeller, the incoming speed into the disk from the forward speed of the airplane is dominating. And so what you've got is the lift actually operating at a different angle along the prop, depending on the inflow speed due to the forward motion of the airplane and the rotational speed due to the rotation of the prop. And so you can really see what's going on as you build up the forces on the prop. And this is accurate enough and well tested enough that I'm actually employing this technology to predict how an electric vertical takeoff and landing airplane will fly. And sometime, hopefully this year, you'll start to see it in the news that we're building a vertical takeoff landing electric airplane. The transplant replacement organs people are on organ donor waiting list, and they're going to be getting 3D printed organs delivered to them by zero emissions electric VTOL. That's a plan I'm working with the customer for the coming years. And I can't show you this airplane yet, but there will come a time, hopefully within a year, where I'll be able to put it at Xplane.com and you'll be able to fly this airplane yourself and you'll be able to see the ultimate embodiment of displaced element theory technology and how it can be applied to an airplane that doesn't even exist yet. It can do a huge amount of good. Another thing that's kind of interesting, when you really get this right, it works when you're going backwards, right? Because all the small angle theory stuff goes away. When you actually go to vectors, it works backwards and sideways just as well as forwards. You might say, well, why do I care if the airplane works when it's going backwards? You know, what's the point? Well, there are reasons for it. What if you're taxiing with a tailwind and a tail dragger? If you're in a light with a tail dragger taxiing at 10 knots with a 20 knot tailwind, that's a very significant force on the airplane you want to know. What if you're in an aerobatic airplane? You pull up vertical and you start to fall. That's a backwards flow over the airplane. What if you're hovering in a helicopter or a VTOL and you have a tailwind that's coming along and kind of pushing you as you're trying to hover against this tailwind in a VTOL or helicopter? All of these are cases where you have backwards flow and you absolutely want the forces to be simulated properly. And so basically, I know I've got it right when it works backwards, sideways, up, down, left, and right, and always perfectly. And so all the small angle approximations are gone. We've eliminated the assumption and cut straight to the core physics here. And so these are some cases that matters. Do I have anything else? One more. Oh, okay. Oh, and then there's this simple, boring little system stuff. Well, it's not that boring when you code it. How well does a generator put out amperage and voltage and stuff like that as a function of the RPM of the engine? So we have better electrical systems modeling now for 1103. I think those were made in 1103, right?
1110.
Oh, 1110, okay. So for 1110, I've coded on new generator amperage and voltage modeling, electrical system modeling, and stuff like that. So I'm always coding and then rolls the stuff in on the schedule that works best in the company release schedule. But system stuff like this, I apply a pressurized, retractable gear, airplane with a generator and an alternator, all the things I learned about the limitations of the airplane, I make sure to code into Xplane, and this is just like one example of dozens of new electrical system modeling. Okay?
All right.
All right, so now Alex Hickard, Alex Unruh, two Alexes, our new lead artist.
You want the?
Yeah. All right.
Hello everyone, I'm Alex Unruh. I am art director here at Meyer Research, and I'm here to talk about some of the new things that we are doing for scenery. As Ben talked about earlier, we have a ton of gateway airports, almost 4,500, and we are going to make these just a little bit better for all of those authors and for the end user. So we're adding new Lego bricks. Let's start with the Jeremy Clarkson Top Gear joke right here, but we actually do have a whole bunch of caravans. There is a suite of them, and we'll start on the vehicles here. Forklifts, they come in a whole bunch of multiple colors. They hold different cargoes and everything else. Great for cargo terminals, everything. It's always about the small details, especially when you start adding everything in. More rural airport fixtures, you're going to see these glider trailers happening. And then, of course, we have new buildings. Here's some control towers, kind of a European style that we've got going. Hangar, kind of a circular, what they call it, circular hangar. More traditional hangars, this one energy efficient. Grain silos, or maybe not grain silos, but silos nonetheless. And then we have clutter objects. And these are really great for populating your airport with whatever you want to do. And the more clutter, the more real, the more, the more plausible and immersive the environment is. Fuel farm, infrastructure. We've got barriers, more permanent barriers. And now we're going to talk about AutoGen. AutoGen, for those of you who don't know, is our auto-generated scenery system. This gives you things like, gives us the cities, gives us all of that. And we break it down into residential, commercial, industrial, amongst other classes. We use OpenStreetMap data for our roads. There's a whole bunch of other things that we could talk about, but we don't have time for that. But let me show you some pictures instead. This is additions to our European AutoGen. We've got some mid-rise apartments going on here, and commercial sectors. A lot of new assets here from our artists. And you'll notice that they're all very meticulously detailed, which is great for the immersive experience. And the more AutoGen you have, the more variety you're going to get in the world. And the more variety you're going to get in the world, the more plausible the experience is going to be. We've always called the AutoGen system Xplane's plausible world. But we've got more, because you can't just have a plausible world. We want the real world. So we are finally getting to landmarks. And let's start with London. We've got Westminster. There is the London Eye. The clock on Big Ben actually goes around sim time, which is a nice picture. Same with the Tower Bridge. It will actually go up and down, which is excellent. Of course, the Eye. Where's the laser? Doesn't matter. Yeah. We've got the Eye behind the bridge. The Gherkin. But we can't stop with London. If you hadn't guessed already, this is Sydney. We're on the Tower Bridge, or Harbour Bridge, sorry. They are illuminated at night. The Opera House, beautifully illuminated as well. And then, of course, we have to add Vegas. Because everyone who's ever flown in this country, I think that Vegas is probably the closest downtown to an airport you're going to get.
That's right.
And the Strip, being the iconic feature that it is, deserves justice, so we're giving it to it. Luxury, Camelot. Here's an overview. It's still a work in progress. We've got a little bit more to do with it, and we can't wait to show it to you when it's lit up, including the Luxor light that goes up to space. And let's go to Chicago. This is the John Hancock Center. Chase Tower, Willis Tower. You'll notice the nice reflections in the Chase windows, courtesy of our physically based render system. Kind of a bird's eye view shot of downtown Chicago. And we'll finish off with dusk. So we have got AutoGen, we've got landmarks, and we've got new building blocks, plus more than I've shown you here that are going to be coming to Xplane this summer. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Chris.
Before I talk about VR, I just want to emphasize those aren't scenery packs. That's default scenery. That's what you get right out of the box. Don't have to update, you get that stuff. Okay, virtual reality. Who here has tried a VR headset on anything? quite a few of you. Who thinks it's an elitist fad that should go away quickly? Only one? Well,
I get sick from it.
I get sick from it too. I have to admit, a couple of us here, I won't name names, but kind of thought, oh, this fad is going to go away. But then I tried it, and I don't think it's going away. I think it's going to be one of several futures of flight simulation. And I hope to convince you too. We do have a booth out there with an Oculus Rift and an HTC Vive, both set up. You can sit down and try the system. It's not done, but it's usable, and it's worth a few minutes to try it out. So, just real quick how VR works, in case you cared or don't know. Normally, this is what we render. Sim puts together a picture of the environment, the cockpit, and gives it to your monitor, and you're done. We need two of them. We got two eyes. And if you notice, the right eye and the left eye have slightly different visions. The right eye has more view on the right side, and the left eye has more view on the left side. But that's not enough either. It has to get warped. So it looks like this, because the VR headset have lenses in them to focus the image to your eye, and it's going to warp it. So we have to warp it the opposite way so the lens will fix it. Ben's first attempt at this, he got the right eye working and not the left eye.
It's fast.
And we call it VR.
VR, there you go.
There's Pirate Austin. VR features, so what do we have? First of all, it's extremely easy to use. You get your system set up with the VR headset in general, do their room calibration, which lets you walk around your room and identify where there are objects that you're going to bump into, because once you have this headset on, you're going to lose complete track of where you are in real space. So you set up your environment. But once that's done, as far as Xplane is concerned, there's one checkbox in the graphics settings. You turn it on and you're done. There's no other hardware needed. You don't need a joystick, you don't need a yoke, you don't need pedals. You can still use them if you want to. Some people have amazing rigs set up at home. You can still use that if you want to, but you don't have to. Once it's set up, with the Oculus, you tend to get about 180 degrees and then you start to lose the sensors. With the HTC Vive, you get a 360 right now because you can put in multiple sensors, so no matter where you turn your head, it can track you. And 6 degrees of freedom, which means you can pretty much look in anywhere in any orientation you can imagine. You can go up underneath the wing, it'll still track you. You can walk around. You can walk around the wing, you can move seats in the cockpit, you can do whatever's comfortable for you. But you're limited to your small office space. So we do have a teleport feature which allows you to press a button and it puts out a little arc and you can point to where you want to go. And when you release, it will move you to that spot and will orient you the way you want to be. So you can basically move around the airplane without ever leaving your chair. Full 3D cockpit manipulation with haptic feedback. So the Garmin knobs in particular are a good case for this. So you reach out, you grab it with the controller, and as you turn your wrist to turn the Garmin knob, the knob's turning in the sim, and you get a little boop, 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 boop in the controller so you can feel in your hand the clicks. So you don't even have to look. You can still count the clicks and know how many kilohertz or whatever you've changed on the radio. Our default fleet is going to be fully done so that every button, knob, switch, any kind of manipulator, doors, windows, everything will be completely operable using just the VR controllers. We also have the X-Pad, as we're calling it, so Apple doesn't sue us. It looks just like an iPad. It will have maps on it. It will have shortcuts so you can do sim things right there from the X-Pad. It's your companion. We don't have this yet, but I'm just thinking in the future how cool it would be, because you can take this right now and you can stick it on the center of the yoke, and as you fly, it follows your yoke, just like you have it mounted there. But how cool would it be if we can get approach plates on there for you? Or do all your flight planning through there, talk to ATC through the, submit your flight plan through it. That's where I'm headed with it, because I want you to be, once you're immersed in VR, it's amazing, and you don't want to have to keep taking the headset off to do things in the sim. So I want you to be able to stay in the virtual world. So I said our default fleet would be fully supported, but what about all of the other planes out there? So authors can make changes to the aircraft to add magnets, and magnets are places that you could mount things. So like we said, we have the X-Pad, you could mount it on the yoke, but maybe you want to be able to mount it on the side window where you have it mounted in your real plane. So the authors can simply add a simple a little bit of line to their OBJs to put a magnet there. Other than that, we've done all the legwork to get manipulators working with the controllers. And we've tuned it so that it feels like you're operating the real thing. If you're turning a knob that moves 270 degrees full deflection, maybe it's a light, just a light brightness knob or something like that. We've tried to get it so that that same amount of movement in the VR controller will turn the knob. So we've done all the legwork for you, but your planes have to use those same types of manipulators. It can't be custom manipulators. Authors can override our behavior if they say, well, yeah, but my OBS knob behaves like this, it's accelerated. So you can change all that and customize it as you need. We don't have guidance out yet, but we will have guidance out for aircraft authors so they can start getting their planes ready for this kind of thing. The best idea, though, is standard practice. Stick with Laminar's manipulators rather than writing your own in Lua or Saddle. I hear this a lot. It's too expensive, who cares? Get back to whatever feature. It's kind of not true. And I take the same, I get defensive for mobile too, because I also work on the mobile platform. All of this stuff is intertwined. We would not have the ability to do mobile if it weren't for desktop, obviously. We wouldn't have the ability to do VR if it weren't for all of these things. So the beautiful V11 user interface, that started on mobile, because we redid a whole new GUI framework for mobile and brought it over to desktop. We have FMOD sound now, so the sound is 3D and immersive. I didn't even realize how bad it was going to be without this, because you have the headset and you're turning around constantly. You don't do that when you're sitting there in front of a monitor. You don't get that 3D sound. You don't get the need for the 3D sound, but with the headset you do. You need that. And it's interesting because you can be sitting in the pilot seat and you can lean out the window in the Cessna and you'll hear how loud it gets when you stick your head outside the window, because the sim says, hey, you're outside. I'm going to take down the attenuation that we had there. So without the sound, we couldn't have VR. We had to have the sound. This is a big one. Everybody cares about this one. Performance. In order to get VR running, VR has to be at least 45 frames a second, or it starts to, you'll get nauseous, believe me. So we're trying to get to 45 and then 60, just in general. So VR is kind of driving this. It's like, VR is like making the sim run a marathon. Like, we got to hit the gym, so we're hitting the gym. We're cleaning up the graphics pipeline, we're modernizing, then we'll talk about Vulkan. Everybody cares about Vulkan and metal. And of course, as awesome as the physically based rendering and the new lighting model and the reflections, as awesome as that is, you have to see it in VR. Because the reflections update as you're moving your head, and each eye has a completely different reflection. So in all of the gauges on the six-pack, the Garmin, everything, as you move your head, you see the reflections moving with you. It's completely convincing. And of course, this is a big one. Fully functional 3D aircraft. So this has forced us to pay very close attention to the manipulators in the cockpit. Not just that they work, but that they work correctly. So for example, if you have a switch, a row of switches in the plane, with the mouse you just click it, you expect it to act. But on mobile that's not true, because on mobile you use your fingers to interact with it. And you don't want to tap it to move a switch. Your brain says, I'm going to move this thing. You want to touch it and you want to move your finger up. So it has to behave properly. And with VR it's the same thing. You don't want to move your hand there and click it. It's a switch. You want to move it like a lever. Same thing with the gear. So not only are the manipulators, are we putting them on all kinds of things now, but they're also reacting the way that our brains expect them to, because the VR controller and the mobile touchscreen are just extensions of our bodies, where when we use a mouse, there's this layer of indirection that lets us cheat a little bit and just let you click things. So everybody benefits. Right. So I made a quick, I think a quick 9-minute video of me actually using the product in my office, just so you can see some of these features live here. Hello everyone, I'm Chris. I'm one of the Xplane developers, and the purpose of today's video is to give you a very brief run-through of some of the features of support for virtual reality headsets with Xplane 11. I'm here in my office/family room, and a little limited on space, so you can see these lines on the ground here represent the boundaries that I can walk in without bumping into my desk and other things. So if the lines appear, it means I'm on the edge, getting close to hitting something, and it's warning me. So I'll try to stand in the middle to keep the lines away, but like I said, the office is a little bit limited in space. I'm wearing the HTC Vive right now, and I have two of the default Vive controllers. and you can see our own little object models of the controllers here in my view. I'm standing outside of our default Cessna 172, and just going to do a very quick walk around just to show you the Vive in particular offers 360 degrees. I can turn my head around anywhere. I can trip over some wires here. I can get down underneath, and we can just look around completely free to just look at anything we want on the aircraft. Almost like you're standing in front of the real thing. Even in the headset, the size and proportion of everything is extremely realistic. You feel like you're standing right in front of it. But we can't all have offices large enough to walk around an aircraft, so we have the ability to teleport. So I can just touch one button on the controller here, and you can see this little arc comes out here, and I can rotate it so I can decide which way I'm facing. So if I want to go to the end of the wing here, I can just do that. And now I'm outside the wing. I'll get a little closer here. And we can look underneath the wing and kind of do like a pre-flight inspection. And we can just very easily walk around and look at various parts here. Alright, so we'll head into the cockpit now. Just teleport over to the door here. And just grab the door handle. So you can see as I bring the controller over to the door handle, and then just make a motion like that, the door opens, and it teleport right into the pilot seat here. Okay, so you can see I grabbed a chair here just so I'm more comfortable, and I'm sitting inside of the seat of the Cessna. No problem, I can just teleport again, and now I'm sitting nicely in the pilot seat. I can choose to sit over here on the right side of the aircraft if I want, and you know, fly as a CFI or as a passenger. But let's come right back over here, and I can reach over and grab the door. Close the door there. So you can see we have an iPad, or a little iPad mini here, or the X-Pad as we call it. And I can pick that up with my hand, and I can move the map around and
That's too much.
do our pre-flight planning on here. But for now, we're just going to get started with the aircraft. Just do a quick takeoff just to show you how usable everything is. These two blue squares that are showing up here show mount points that I can put the iPad, and I can stick it right there, and out of my hands, if I grab the yoke, it stays with the yoke. But let's just put it over here just so it's not such a distraction. So in the aircraft, essentially everything you could have ever interacted with before is interacted with the controller. It doesn't have to just be the right controller. It can be the left controller, or it can be both at the same time. So you can be, you know, adjusting the switches here and adjusting your throttle at the same time. Let's see, we can turn our master switch on, get our strobes going, our beacon. Check the area.
Clear problem.
A little throttle. So with the left hand, I'll bring
It's going to be yellow clear problem.
left hand, I'll grab the ignition, and the right hand, I'll grab the mixture, and we'll see if we get it started. So I'm just rotating my wrist here to turn the key, and I'll start. And then
We didn't yell clear problem.
All right, so that's good. We'll bring our avionics on. And we have our GPS up and running, and we'll just do a quick takeoff here. So I have access to pretty much everything. I can adjust my trim here. We'll set the trim for takeoff. Fuel tank looks good. We can adjust the flaps here, but we'll do a flaps off departure. So with this hand, I can grab the yoke. Just rotating my wrist here to turn the yoke, and then pitch up and down to adjust the pitch here. Come down here and turn the parking brake off. We'll grab the throttle. Forward and push that down. And there we go. So I can let go at any time and have both my hands back, and the yoke will hold that same pitch and roll. And look around. Back here.
Oh man, that'll take me so much to
And we can enjoy a nice sunset. So I turn the autopilot on here just so I can have the plane stay stable here and not have to worry about babysitting it. Well, I show you that even the Garmin displays here, we can fully interact with them as we would really direct. See our wrist, and I don't know if you can hear it, but there's feedback in the controller, so it makes a little click just like the Garmin knob would each time you turn it. So if you want to go direct to that. So one other quick thing I'll show you is I can just press the menu button on this controller and it brings us to our hangar here. And let me just teleport behind and take a space the wrong way. There we go. So I can come right up to our little whiteboard here, which we have our menu on, and this is the standard Xplane menu, the pre-flight menu, and I can pick the MD-80 for example. We can adjust our weather and time of day and everything that you normally can. Just going to show the MD-80 really briefly because it's kind of an amazing aircraft, especially in a VR headset. The entire overhead panel, every one of these buttons and knobs and switches you can completely interact with. Even these little guarded switches like I think these are started here, the engines are already running, but that's the great thing about VR, you can go around with stuff, but you can interact with all these things and close the switches when you're done. And we can turn the wipers on. We'll go along the dash here, and there's an amazing amount of things you can interact with. Even going down here, you can adjust your lighting. You can see the flood lighting here when they're changing as I do that. Of course, the SMS works as well. You can punch in each key that you need to. And like with the Cessna here, I can teleport over to the other side, and I can be first officer on this side, or I can teleport back here, right in front of the door, open the door, and I can go and sit back here as a passenger if I'd like to. So that's it, just a quick run through of some of the features that we have coming in future updates of Xplane 11. VR is a really big topic, so we may do a video devoted to each feature where we can spend some more time discussing it, but I wanted to keep this video as short and quick as possible for the presentation at Harvard. So one thing you don't realize from the video is that wearing a VR headset, the size of everything is realistic. We don't do graphic user interface anymore in pixels, usually 640 by 480. The API asks us for meters. So when I made that whiteboard, I said, oh, it's 6 feet, it's 2 meters. So when you stand outside of an airliner, you do this and you're just looking at a tire that's like this tall. When you stand outside the Cessna, you duck underneath the wing. Like, it's extremely realistic as far as the size of things goes. So I'm gonna hand the mic over to Philip.
Yeah, thanks. My name is Philip Luther, and I maybe had the longest commute to get here because I came in from Germany the day before yesterday. And I think they put me behind Chris to have some slides for the people who think that VR is a fad that nobody needs, and we need more serious simulator features, and nobody cares for VR, so that's why they put my slides in here. So I've been responsible for some time for the avionics in Xplane. So what you see here, the default FMS that comes in all the aircraft of the default fleet of Xplane, I did that. We have default instruments for the GA pilots, and the history why we have them in Xplane 10, we introduced them in Xplane 10, is actually that I needed something to train on because I was getting my real world instrument rating and I needed a 430 in Xplane that I could train on, and there were none available for the Mac and Linux platform, so I made them for Xplane. The default FMS, I originally used to be an add-on developer, so some of you have maybe flown the Canada Regional Jet by Javier Roland, and the FMS that is now in Xplane originally came from this add-on a couple of years ago. And I'm here to announce this. This is what is coming into default Xplane 11 as a free update. It's not an add-on that you need to shell out more money for. It comes as instruments that add-on makers can put into their aircraft. They can integrate it into the 3D panel, the 2D panel, and what's most important, they work with the Xplane windowing system, so just like you can take the FMS or the GPS out of the simulator onto a second monitor and resize it, you can do the same thing with the G1000. It's extremely great for building home cockpits because you have command access to all the buttons on the bezel, so you can have a hardware bezel for all the buttons here, and then put the screen on whatever screen size you need because it's all vector, and you can resize it and it looks great. Actually, I think in full screen it looks better than the real thing. So even this, if you look here and you see the sky gets from a darker blue to a lighter blue here, even that is not a texture. That's all vector data. So no matter how big it is, it'll look great. I think that's the next slide. Yeah, of course there's many different software versions of the G1000 around, and of course I modeled the one that I have most hours on, and that would be Austin's airplane, the 428 X-Ray. So the one that is in Xplane will be based on that software. But then again, of course, Austin's 428 X-Ray was a single engine piston, and we made it customizable for different aircraft types by a plane maker. And the important thing is there's no new settings. So if an aircraft designer has made a 172 and dialed in all the parameters, or he has made a 182 and dialed in all the parameters, he can just drop in the G1000 and all the displays will be correct for the engine that he made. Yeah, as I just said, you can put in the 3D cockpit, you can put out the 2D panel, then you can take out the 2D panel, put it on the second monitor for home cockpit builders. The colors of the projector are totally screwed up. I mean, what the hell? Okay, so this is supposed to be magenta. This is the flight plan target altitude. I think it's magenta, like the flight director. This is the PFD. It has a few options that probably not all of you know. For example, we have the tie-in DME that probably no one uses in the United States. The thing is, I'm a licensed flight instructor in both Europe for the EASA rules and the US for the FAA rules. And in Europe, we have different regulations pertaining DME and GPS usage. So that's why I programmed it that way. So overview of the features. It does not have all screens, so if you are the type of guy who wants to go into the auxiliary 3-page and look at the LRU unit, what the software version of your GDC unit is, no, this page is not going to be there. So it is, I focus more on what I teach as a flight instructor, and I use the FAA guidance for teaching partial panel and failures in glass cockpit aircraft. So the focus of the G1000 in Xplane is not to have every single page with every LRU version number and whatever, but to have what you need in training, and that is all the screens and the failure modes.
And you have the flight plans?
Yeah, of course. We have a WAS and a non-WAS option. You can actually fail the WAS in flight, and then your approach performance degrades. We have the GFC 700 autopilot integration. We have the DME, I just talked about that, and we can pull up the weather display on the MFD. So here's a couple of failures. So we have an air data computer failure, we have an AHARS failure, we have, this, when I first worked on it, this is not a bug. This is what the actual unit does if you go into an unusual attitude. At some point it splits the line from the horizon to assist you with the unusual attitude recovery. And the fact that those windows are suddenly missing here, that's also not a bug. What the real software does is when you get into an unusual attitude, it removes all kinds of stuff from the display and displays those little chevrons here to help you get back into your correct attitude. Customization, as I said, in PlaneMaker, you just say the single, twins, turboprop, or turbo, or piston, or turbocharged, or whatever. You put in the limitations in PlaneMaker that you already have for the 2D panel anyway, and once you've done that, that's what you get. So we have the fixed pitch configuration, the constant speed propeller. We can pull up the systems page here. So all the bus voltages, that of course profits from what Austin just said, that he made a better electrical system. So of course that works on the G1000 as well. We have the turbocharged configuration with the turbine temperature down here. We have for the Lancer Evolution or for the Cessna Caravan, you get the turboprop configuration, and if you fly a Baron or something, you get the twin engine configuration. The navigation features are all what you would expect if you ever used my 430 or my FMS. So all things that the FMS can do, the G1000 will be able to do as well. You can have satellite-based augmentation approaches, both for us in the United States and EGNOS in Europe. You actually get all the different sensitivities for the lateral and vertical deviation, and of course, this when you fail WAS, some of them become unavailable, and you can do RNPAR, which means you can fly those curved approaches with a GPS-defined arc segments, like the modern form of a DME arc. So there was a question about the flight plan. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like when you load a standard instrument departure into the flight plan, or you load an approach into the flight plan. And yeah, I don't think the problem is we're out of time. I can't demo it, so if you want to see it, you have to come over to the booth and actually see it. I'm not going to be able to do the live demo. I hand over to Vince anyway.
And so. So everything we've talked about so far, these are all things that make Xplane an amazing flight simulator. These are all going to be things that make Xplane great to fly. But I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about things that make Xplane great to build a flight sim ecosystem on top of. Things that are good for add-ons, for building home cockpits. I want to talk a little bit about the state of Xplane, the platform. So about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, Austin said to me that, he said, I want Xplane to run at 60 bits and no stutters. That was Austin's request. And being a good employee, I said, oh my God, Oscar, we're going to have to ship Xplane 11. It's really good. I haven't done any of my features yet, and it runs at 3 bits. I'm really stressed out right now. Why don't we not talk about this for a year? And Austin was very, very kind. He did not bug me about this for a year. It's been a year now, so let's see how we're doing. We're not there yet. I get this about once a week on the developer blog. I have a super awesome gamer PC and my CPU is running 25%. My GPU is so bored it took a minute. I paid $3,000 for this PC. What are you guys doing? I saw this picture on Reddit and it explains exactly what's going on.
Nothing about new planes yet.
Here's the problem. We have one CPU core doing all the work of trying to render the graphics. And if you've got more, they are standing around bored. 25% CPU utilization, what that really means is that one core is doing all the work and 3 cores are not. And the GPU is bored because that one core who's trying to do all the heavy lifting himself can't talk to the GPU fast enough to tell Xplane how to draw at faster than 35ths. So this is not so good. So I'd like you to meet 2 of my friends who are going to help us get past this problem. There they are. The first one is Vulkan, and the second one is Metal. Okay? These are next generation graphics APIs that we are going to be adopting. These are new ways for Xplane to talk to your existing video card and do it more efficiently. Vulkan is the next generation graphics API for Windows, Linux, and Android, and Metal is the next generation API for Apple, for Mac OS X, and for iOS. So this is kind of what the world looks like right now. Xplane is based on OpenGL. This is an existing technology. It's been around for about 500 years. And Metal and Vulkan, you guys can see Vulkan? The colors are terrible. Metal and Vulkan are new technologies. Let's just say Vulkan right there. These are more like each other than they are like the legacy stuff. And by the way, okay.
You want to hear it,
Gotcha. And DirectX is actually the same situation. We have these next generation technologies which are very different than what we've had before. So why do we want these new things? There's these 3 superpowers that the new APIs give us that we need. The first one is to use a lot less CPU, and that just means more fits. More importantly, they are multi-core friendly, and so we can get all of the cores working on the problem of Xplane and not just one. And the last one is subtle, but I think it might be the most important one, which is they're very predictable. If we want to fly at 65ths and we want to be stutter-free, we need a graphics technology that is not going to occasionally pause and go out to lunch and cause Xplane to stall. So we're trying to get from a situation where Xplane is built on top of OpenGL to one where we're built on a much thinner Vulkan layer. I have some bad news and some good news about this. The bad news is that this is a huge undertaking. This is not just a simple drop-in. This might be the only thing we've talked about today that might not be done in 2017. We've already started this, and we're still looking at a year-long process. So this is a big, long-term change. The good news is, as we make the changes, Xplane gets better immediately, and that's why Xplane 11.02 is faster than 11.01. Xplane 11.10 is going to be faster than 11.02, and we're going to get other features like VR and shadows. So this is going to be a long journey with our engine, but it's going to be better at every stage along the way. Now, right now on YouTube, a plugin author is watching this and going, "Oh my God, you guys are going to take away OpenGL. I am so screwed." Because OpenGL has been the foundation of Xplane graphics for probably 20 years. That's right. And if you use a third-party add-on that has vector graphics or a glass display, or if you flown Xsquawk or Pilot's Edge, OpenGL is at the heart of it. So what's going to happen with our add-ons? First of all, we are not taking OpenGL away in Xplane 11. For the life of the product, we will keep supporting what we've always had, and that way no one gets left out in the cold. This is going to be very similar to 64-bit, where we kept supporting 32-bit. 4 years ago, we went to 64-bit, but we kept 32-bit around, so our pro customers were not going to get those. Scenery or airplanes, a lot of things are basically just going to work, and we're also going to try and get it so the glass cockpits and 2D and UI also just work without transition. However, add-ons that draw in 3D, that would be SkyMax Pro, Xenviro, Xsquawk, Pilot's Edge, these add-ons will need to be modified. So we're working now on the plugin system modifications so that people can get started and get in on this process. We're a little bit out of DEFCON time, but I just want to highlight 4 tools that we're getting ready so that you can use Xplane 11 now. World Editor 1.6 just came out. You can make airports now for Xplane 11, including the new ground trucks and services. Fmod Sound is available now, including the templates and the documentation. So you can make immersive sound for Xplane 11. It will sound fantastic. This is just a quick picture of a recording session that Chris and Austin did. And if you're going to do this kind of serious sound acquisition, Xplane with Fmod is a great way to hear it. It's really dynamic. Our modeling tools, we're going to have releases fairly soon, including a new 3ds exporter as well as Blender. So we're going to have really great modeling solutions. And finally, we're working on an Xplane SDK update for this summer, which is going to bring in a lot of the capabilities of Xplane 11 for plugin developers. So multi-monitor, the map, the ability to work with new APIs. We're trying to get this done as soon as we can so people can use it. So that's the state of Xplane. We're really happy about our add-ons. We should have some of this stuff out ASAP. We're going to have a lot of this stuff over the summer, and probably VR in the fall. I can't really predict when we're going to have Vulcan and Metal. I don't have a crystal ball on that, but this is what we're pushing Xplane. So thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time. We'll take questions until they take us out of the room, but thank you for supporting Xplane. Thank you.
I'll take one or two questions for...
Our booth is just outside, so if you want to talk to us, ask us anything.